Hey everybody, I am doing another live session today. I am talking today about how to travel with your kids without losing your mind. That's the ultimate goal. If anybody has ever tried to travel with children, you know that this can sometimes be something that can drive us a little crazy. So we just got home from our Northeast trip where we did a Northeast fall foliage road trip. So I thought, you know what? We're just going to do this live stream as soon as I get home, and all these ideas and experiences are fresh on my mind. And then I can share these things with you all and hopefully instill some confidence in you all to take that next step or that first step of traveling with your children, honestly, no matter how old they are. So, we are going to kind of go through some different points. And if you guys have any questions at all while I'm kind of talking through these 5 points, if you have a trip coming up or something like that where you're taking your kids and you have some questions you want to ask me, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I'll try to address them as well as I'm kind of working through this. So that's my goal, is to help you be more confident and feel like you can do this with your kids, because I know that you can. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started with the first point of how to travel with your kids without losing your mind. So, the first thing is a little bit counterintuitive, but my advice would be to travel without your kids first and really increase your confidence, get more comfortable as a traveler. Everybody has different experiences as a traveler. Some of you did not travel as much as kids, and maybe you're wanting to start this new tradition with your own family. And so maybe your travel muscle is a little bit weak. That's okay. Travel without your kids. Go with your partner, go with your significant other, your husband, your wife, and travel with them without the kids first, because kids just make things more complicated. And I think that you can start to learn a lot about yourself as a traveler and understand your strengths and weaknesses as a traveler. So we all have a variety of strengths and weaknesses when we travel. Traveling itself is a stressful experience. Enjoying a vacation is usually really fun, but the travel itself is what can be stressful. So something kind of to give you an example of this, Josh and I, we traveled a lot before we had kids, and we really started to learn some things about ourselves that we decided to carry into traveling with kids. So we realized that we are very impatient travelers. We hate standing in line. We hate going through security at the airport. We hate just like waiting. We're so impatient. So we've learned this about ourselves, and we've really tried to streamline the process. So we valet park at the airport. We don't check bags. We only do carry-ons because we don't want to have to stand in line. We don't want to have to wait for the luggage afterwards. We, get the boarding pass on our phone. Like, we try to streamline as much as possible. We get global entry. We have TSA pre-check. So we do all of these things. We've invested in all these other things to help streamline travel for ourselves, because we're really impatient. And we know then we're going to carry those same things into traveling with our kids, and it's going to make it simpler and easier for us. So I think the first thing is honestly to travel without your kids first, build that muscle, build that confidence, and then you're going to feel so much better when you go with your kids. It'll be old hat. Okay, so the next thing, the second point, this is really where we start to get into traveling with your kids. So you need to focus on non-negotiables when it comes to packing. What I like to do is really look at our itinerary, sit down, and map out in my mind all the things that I have to have. Not things that I normally have at home, not things that I would like to have, or what if, McLean or Paxton gets sick, and what if they need this one thing that they only use every once in a while? No, you need to map out in your mind literally the things you have to sustain your kids. So for us, our non-negotiables, to give you some examples, this is what we had on our last trip: a portable sound machine, car seats for both kids, either a stroller or some sort of carrying device for McLean, because she's kind of getting to that phase where she's pretty heavy. maybe both, could be an option. And then some sort of crib or pack and play for McLean to sleep in at night. That's it. That is literally the non-negotiables. That's what we have to have. Now, of those things that are non-negotiables, which of those things do we have to bring with us? So then you start to think about, okay, could I rent these items? Could I, rent a sound machine? Could I rent a car seat? Could I rent a pack and play? Especially when you're flying, minimizing what you have to pack with you is very, very helpful. So I remember actually our first trip that we took McLean with us. She was 2 months old, and we flew to Hilton Head with some friends of ours. We tried to make it a really low key trip the first time. So we flew and we did not pack a thing. Like we packed like diapers and clothes. But nothing else. And we rented the car seats, we rented the sound machines, we rented the cribs. And for us, it made it simpler because was our first trip with 2 kids, and one of which was very young. So you can rent things, Baby Quip is a site I use a lot to rent items. So that's definitely a possibility. Or, think about too logistics. So like sometimes I think for some trips, the stroller can be your friend because especially now that we have 2 kids, I think having the stroller is kind of a game changer at the airport. I can kind of throw a bunch of stuff on the stroller and McLean's also riding in it. And, it moves on wheels just like the suitcases. So for us, it works really well. You can gate check your stroller. So it's pretty much always with you. And, the only kind of stressful part about taking a stroller that ours is like a travel system stroller that's 2 pieces, is you kind of have to figure out how am I going to break this down and build it back up, as you're getting on the plane and deplaning. But I'll talk about that in a second, how Josh and I navigate that. But, strollers, they're great. They can be super helpful. They can be gate checked. And also too, I think some people stress out about having like a fancy stroller, or freaking out about a car seat base. Like McLean is still rear facing. It's a small car seat, a rear facing car seat. You don't have to have a base when you are traveling with your car seat. You can literally just use the seatbelt and strap them in. So I've done that before. We just did that in our Northeast trip. And then we also did that in Mexico as well. We took her car seat and we just strapped it in with the seatbelt. You do not have to have a base. So, again, minimalist. You got to be minimalist when you're packing. Okay. And then some other helpful things just that I'll throw out there besides just like some branded things that we have. So we do have a tush baby. We use that quite a bit. In Italy, especially, Pax was 2. And there were a lot of times I did have to carry him instead of using a stroller because cobblestone streets. But the tush baby was a lifesaver. And then like an ergo baby carrier, we ended up using that for this trip because we had a lot of hikes. So sometimes that can be easier as well. So just like a couple items to think about. Most of you guys already have, but just thinking about how you can use it for travel. And then a fun little packing tip that I had totally seen before, but I had never tried. I think, again, like having 2 kids now, it just kind of makes me think more about minimalist because McLean also doesn't get a piece of luggage. So we don't check luggage. We only use carry-ons. And right now we have 4 people traveling in our family and we only get 3 pieces of luggage. So I have to get kind of creative with packing. But one tip that I have and I'm sure you guys have seen this on Pinterest or Instagram or something, but the gallon size bags, Ziploc bags for outfits. That was such a game changer for us this time because we were on a road trip and we were pretty much changing hotels every 1 to 2 nights. So having all of the kids' outfits pre-picked out in the Ziploc bags, and we would literally just exchange out. I could set them out for the next morning. We could put their pajamas in there, like the clean and dirty situation, kids get dirty and the dirty clothes were all zipped up in a Ziploc bag. It was game changing. I will never not do that again. So, and they almost work like vacuum sealed even, like you kind of push the air out and you really fit a lot of clothes. I fit all of Paxton and McLean's clothes with plenty of extra into a carry-on. So, just a little tip that I used and it worked and will be using it again. So kind of fitting along this same tip of non-negotiables when packing is just less is more in general when it comes to travel. So you don't need all the toys, you don't need the whole medicine cabinet, you don't have to have every single baby device because we know there's plenty out there. The point of the trip is to keep your kids entertained with new places and new experiences. So you don't have to pack all that stuff. Literally, the only toy that I brought for Paxton was those little Water Wow books. I think I had 2 of them, and he ended up finding a little tiny plastic car on the airplane that was somebody else's. That was it. That was literally all we had, and he was more than happy, okay? He had kept himself entertained, and he said his favorite thing about our trip this time was hiking the waterfall, and he just loves being outside, you know? So kids keep themselves entertained. You don't have to pack everything. We do pack like a screen, a little um, like iPad kind of thing for him to watch on the airplane because again, we're not trying to lose our minds when we're on an airplane. Okay, we got it downloaded with episodes of Rescue Bots, but I do think just keeping things to a minimum is super important. You're only gone for a weekend or a week or 2 weeks, at most. And most likely, for most of you all, your destinations, they're going to have the things that you need anyways. So, they're going to have medicine if you need it. They're going to have toys if you need it. So don't stress about packing all of that with you. Instead, let them enjoy the actual trip itself. That's what you're going for, is for them to have a new experience. To give you an example, when we went to Italy with Pax, he was 2, and we had one carry-on each. Josh and I each had a backpack. Josh's backpack had a foldable stroller in it. We had a little tush baby that I carried him on. And then we had a little backpack leash, that he could wear. I thought I would never be that parent, but it was great. He wore his little backpack leash and his sound machine. That was it. And we were there for a month. So we rented car seats when we needed it. We stopped at pharmacies if we needed medicine. There are pharmacies in Italy. It's fine. Grab some Tylenol, whatever you need. We went to a toy store and we found the cutest little wooden toy for him to play with, and it was great. It was a brand new toy. It was awesome. So the destinations you're going to are going to have the things that you need most likely. So just less is more. You don't need everything. And then also less is more applies to your itinerary, especially with kids, especially when they're younger. I think you can try this out with your kids as they get older. You can start to push them more with your itinerary, but you really need to give your itinerary room to breathe on a trip when you have kids. So you need to work around your existing nap schedules as much as possible. We tested that limit with McLean this time. And do things that your kids are going to enjoy doing. We know that Pax likes being outside. He likes going on hikes and doing things like that. McLean really enjoys it. She likes kind of being carried in the little ergo carrier. So it's okay, well then let's do hikes. Let's do things that are outside. If Pax can find a bunch of rocks to throw, we've got an hour of entertainment. Okay. And we know this about our kids. So we're planning things that give those opportunities, and we're not going to over plan. And something else to think about too is especially when your kids are young and in the toddler phase, schedule things that are low cost or no cost into your itinerary. So then you don't have this built up pressure in your mind of, we have to do this. We just spent so much money on this. And it really will kind of take down the expectation, take down the pressure that you put on yourself, because you've, invested $5. We invested $5 into Pax's favorite thing we did on the whole trip, which was a hike to a waterfall. It was great. And if he would have melted down, if he would have gotten scared, if McLean would have, thrown a fit, it would have been $5. No big deal. So think about that too, especially if you have kids in the toddler phase of what are some low cost, no cost things we can build into the itinerary just to take the pressure off, because we don't need that much pressure as parents. And then also think about too, you really should be focusing on fewer, more meaningful, impactful activities instead of just kind of trying to jam everything in. So for our Italy trip, for example, when we went, I picked one thing a day for us to do. Now, we were there for longer, so that made a difference. For our Northeast trip, I tried to pick two things a day for us to do. So, two things in the morning, one thing in the morning, one thing in the afternoon. And we really try to give our itinerary room to breathe. We would take trips on the road, that would be an hour, perfect for McLean to fall asleep and take a nap. Did she always know? But, those kind of the plan was to weave in those natural things that will keep your kids somewhat on their normal schedule, especially that toddler phase, and just enjoying things that they love to do too. So, and you can do that without doing a kid trip. I don't think the Northeast Fall Foliage trip is a kid trip. There's no like characters and music and dance and all of that. But like we know what our kids enjoy. And we tried to make room in our itinerary for that. So, and then the last thing would be souvenirs. I think sometimes people go crazy with souvenirs. So just less is more. Usually we pick like one thing and that's our thing. Like I got one ornament and I got, Pax got one toy to play with. It was like a little quiet toy, that he could play with. And that was like it. That was all of our souvenirs, but it's just less, like you don't need all that. You have the memories. So, and then, the next thing, so that's kind of the third point, the less is more, which kind of went in with the packing as well. So then now gets into communication. And I really do feel like there's kind of two parts to this. And this is really where I tried to sit and reflect while we were on our trip. What is the reason why we enjoy traveling with our kids? And this is the key for me. Josh and I communicate, we overly communicate while we are traveling. Like I wish that there was a camera or a mic recording our conversations when we're at the airport, because we are mapping out responsibilities. Who's taking care of what? Who's pushing what? Who is holding whose hand? Who's carrying who? I mean, we literally do that. We will sit and map out how we board a plane and how we deplane. We talk through that. Well, we're on the same team. We got to communicate. Okay. And I think that's crucial. So literally when we deplane every time we deplane, and we've deplaned quite a few planes, Josh turns to me and says, okay, here's what we're doing. You're going to hold McLean. You're going to put your backpack on. I'm going to hand you this piece of luggage. Pax is going to go first. We kind of talk through the game plan, and it might kind of sound silly to people watching us, but it works so well for us because then we're just kind of going and we're on this mission and we know we're on the same team with each other. So we map that out. We talk about it. We overly talk about it. And I think that really is what makes it enjoyable for us is we have a game plan. Nobody's pointing fingers and saying, oh, you were supposed to do this. You were supposed to grab this. You don't even want to start those kind of fights when you're on a trip with kids. So just communicate, overly communicate. And then I think too that communication, it makes you feel more calm when the stress and anxiety starts to build. So to give you an example, like Josh he feels very anxious going through airport security. He hates it. So we got TSA pre-check, but then we also I kind of take on the bulk of the kids during that process because I know Josh does not enjoy that. So his responsibility is all the luggage. He puts all the bags onto the machine. I've got the kids. I'm the one, kind of managing them as we go through TSA. And that works for us. But we've talked about it, and we know, okay, when we're starting to feel a little anxious, then let's just talk about it. And have that game plan. And then the other thing that I think is crucial before you ever even go on your trip is I think really sitting down and talking about the expectations that you have for your vacation, that your spouse has, that your kids have, especially as they get a little bit older. What are they wanting to get out of the trip? What are their goals? What are your goals as a family for the trip? And talk about those things. Maybe even kind of make yourself like a fun little list of, we want to do this as a family, or we want to, try this food, or, I want to be able to try this activity. And I think talk about those things as a family and understand each other's goals. So when, I really we got to our last day of our trip and we got a little behind in our schedule, but I really wanted to go see the Lincoln family home. I'm a nerd for historic things, and I wanted to go see Hildine. And I had told that to Josh. So guess what? The last day, we just woke up early. We kind of mapped out our time and we made sure we could fit in Hildine because he knew that's something I'd communicated with him I wanted to do. So communicate those goals beforehand and throughout the trip as well. Think about those activities that people want to check off and achieve as they're there. And then the other important thing too is, and this is just me being very honest, I'm someone who I'm not home with my kids 24/7. They go to daycare. You might have kids, that are in public school already. You're probably not with your kids all the time. And you're used to that. But when you go on vacation, suddenly everyone is thrust in together and you're all together 24 hours a day, 7 days in a row. And I mean, let's be honest, that's a lot. Okay. That feels overwhelming for a lot of people, especially if you're not, a stay-at-home parent, and you're not used to that togetherness all the time. So I think in your communication and also in your itinerary building, build in time for you to have alone time or even time that's kind of one-on-one with your kids. We built that in this time. I would make some time to, go grab some breakfast and get a cup of coffee. And, in hotels where we had separate spaces, Josh kind of got his alone time where he could get on his computer and do what he wanted to do with his podcast. So, that's important. We went and got Pax a toy that we knew he would like to play with. He played with it in the hotel by himself for 2 hours. So, take that time in your itinerary to also enjoy your vacation, and have that alone time too. Because I think that's where sometimes people get in trouble is you're almost spending too much time together. Like family vacations are great, but like the togetherness can feel like a lot and feel really daunting. So just give yourself some room and communicate about that. Like, hey, I need to tap out here. Like I need to go get a cup of coffee and like have some alone time on the patio and just communicate that. So I love this. My friend Rachel, I'm just checking out the comments, and she was saying, yeah, it's important to be clear and not expect them to read our minds or act differently, than we know what they typically do, and we love it. So, like, yeah, just talk to your person, be on the same team as them, and know that just be really clear. And sometimes it sounds seriously so dumb when we're traveling because we communicate about everything, but I think it's smart. And yeah, just setting those expectations from the beginning is really, really crucial. So I'm trying to think what else. Okay, let's see. So alone time, that's kind of like where we left off. And that was just me being transparent. Like I'm not with my kids all the time. So when I am with them, sometimes it can just be a lot. So you're not alone if that's you too. Okay. And then one other thing about expectations is I am a huge fan of bribing my children, especially when it comes to a vacation. I will definitely bribe. So we bribe, like I said, with the little tablet on the airplane. We use that as a bribe with Paxton. It keeps him content while we're flying. And we also this time kind of prepped Paxton for some hikes. There might be some hikes that are going to be kind of lengthy and difficult, and we're not going to whine and we're not going to complain because those are things Josh and I enjoy doing is hiking. So we bribed Paxton. We said, for every hike you do, we'll pay you, $1. And he loves that. He can save up his money and buy toys. So don't be afraid to bribe your kids when you're on vacation to buy yourself an awesome experience. That was maybe my favorite thing we did on the trip was that big long hike. And we bribed Paxton and I'm not afraid to say that. And I'm so glad that we did. He was motivated. Had a positive attitude and he got his $2. We upped it. We said, okay, you're getting $2 for this hike because you did so great. So I think bribery works really well on vacation and, promise them. I know we did that with Pax a lot in Italy too. Like, hey, we're going to go do this museum and mommy and daddy are going to look around and then we're going to go get ice cream. So you have to be a good listener, pay attention, be quiet when we need to be quiet, and then we'll go get some gelato. It worked really well. Ice cream's a great bribe. So don't be afraid to bribe your kids on vacation. That's the fun of it. And then okay, so then the last thing after communication would be, kind of like your next step. So I feel like if you're watching this, you want to travel with your kids, or you have traveled a little bit, or maybe you're interested in starting this tradition. The main thing is just to start. Like, start with small trips, start with a staycation, even. Go up to Lexington, or go to Louisville, or go to Nashville. Go to your nearest kind of bigger town, and just do one night at a hotel. It's not going to kill you. Or do an Airbnb, and go stay somewhere. Do something different. Go to a restaurant. Go to a zoo. Just do one overnight. Start small. Think about your kids' interests. Pax loves animals. We've done zoos in other little towns or museums. So fun. Do a staycation. Okay, just test it out. Test it out and see. And start small too, because you need to think about your routine and your nap schedule, your feeding schedule if you're in that kind of phase of life. For us, a beach trip was always easy for us. I don't think it is for everyone. But for us, it works out well. And so that's kind of where we started, was always the beach trips. Like, okay, this is pretty, chill. The beach itself, going to the beach is free. It's free entertainment. We're just sitting and playing in the sand. And it just really helped us to get our feet wet. And, you can always go to the grocery and buy all your groceries and just cook at home. And you don't have to go out to eat if you don't want to. So that's something that can be easy, but I would just say, just start somewhere, do something small. And if you're wanting to try kind of a bigger trip, like you do have some vacation time that you want to take, I really want you to think about maybe like an all-inclusive. So an all-inclusive could be a really nice fit for some families, because a lot of them have baby amenities. They will have strollers, high chairs, baby food. They'll have the cribs. They'll have the little monitors. Like, it blows my mind, some resorts, how much baby stuff they have. They have baby food. They have formula. It's amazing. So sometimes, looking for that right all-inclusive trip could be really nice. Another positive of doing an all-inclusive as like your first big family trip could be not only the baby amenities, but also like you're prepaying for everything. So once you're there, your entertainment is free. Your food, your drinks, like, I don't want to say they're free. You've just prepaid them. So if your 4-year-old wants spaghetti and then it comes out and they realize they want chicken nuggets, no biggie. You just order chicken nuggets. Not a big deal. But if you're at a big fancy restaurant and you just paid $14 for chicken nuggets or whatever, you might start to feel frustrated and let down. So an all-inclusive could actually be a really good fit for that big first family trip if you're feeling a little bit intimidated by traveling with your family. They also, a lot of them will have kids clubs. And if they don't cater to your kids' ages in the kids clubs, a lot of them start at like 3 or 4. Then a lot of them do offer babysitting services, or they have a kids area that you can go take your kid to and like monitor them while you're there. So that's something to think about. Like, I know we took the kids to Nickelodeon, and that's definitely a family-friendly resort, but I was blown away by the amenities. I was blown away by the kids club. It was such an easy trip. We didn't have to pack and unpack and load and unload, and we just walked everywhere and like went to the restaurant, and like we ordered the big huge dessert pizza because Pax wanted it, and he, didn't eat it all, and it was okay. We'd already prepaid everything. So an all-inclusive can be like a really big win for your family and spending time together, and maybe kind of also set a low bar as far as expectation for a family trip. And the value is really good too. So just something to consider, something to think about if you haven't thought about that before. Or maybe, you've done a beach trip here in the States, but you kind of want to try something different. So, yeah, that's kind of my spiel on traveling with kids. I really just want to hit home with just a few points. Don't make excuses. Don't tell yourself that traveling with your kids is going to be too hard or it's not worth it because they're not going to remember it, because you are going to remember it. You are going to remember those times that you spent with your family going somewhere new and doing something different with them, because you're building that family camaraderie and you're building these lifelong memories for your children and for yourself. And honestly, you're building that muscle for your kids to become really good travelers. So you're starting this little, regiment in them and this little love in them for travel. And it's just going to grow and it's just going to get bigger and they're going to get better. You're going to get better and they're going to get, to be develop that love for travel, that hopefully you're trying to instill in them because you're wanting to travel yourself. So you're going to make your kids better travelers. Just start small and build that muscle, and you're going to make them better travelers in the future. And it's going to make things easier because they're going to get better at it. You're going to get better at traveling with them. And once they get to be older, then it's going to be even more enjoyable. You're not trying to attempt this first trip with them when they're 17, and they're intimidated by it all. So I can only speak from my personal experience, but honestly, the most meaningful memories that I have with my little family are family vacations, they're family trips. And those are things that I'll have forever. And, when my family travels together, that's just those core memories that I'll hold on to. And I really just want the same thing for you all. So thanks for hanging with me and, listening to kind of my advice, I guess, about what has worked for us with travel, and traveling with our kids. And if you ever have any questions about logistics or anything like that of traveling with kids, or want some good ideas about where to go with your kids, then please feel free to reach out on my social media accounts, either here on Facebook, on Instagram at Allie Picture This Travel, or you can go to my website, alliepicturethistravel.com, and you can fill out the contact form or schedule a call. So yeah, thanks so much, guys.